This is TWiT.
All right, the definition of an earworm, at least according to Wikipedia, is a catchy piece of music that continually repeats through a person's mind after it's no longer playing. I define, personally, earworm as what happens when you watch the 2014 Adult Swim short called Too Many Cooks. It was a riff, if you haven't seen it, you got to see it. It was a riff on 80s and 90s television with a song that never seems to end and a whole lot of unexpected twists and ultimately very dark turns. It's fantastic. And now the creator of that short has another masterpiece called Final Deployment 4, Queen Battle Walkthrough. Fans of Twitch culture are gonna love it. Joining us is director and co-creator of Final Deployment 4, Casper Kelly. Welcome to the show, Casper.
Hello, Jason. Great to be here.
It's great to have you here. I'm honored to get the chance to talk to you because your work has made me laugh and feel very uncertain time and time again, so I appreciate it. It's going to be hard to do an interview on this one without revealing too much, but we'll do our best here. First, tell me why you and co-creator Nick Gibbons saw video game streaming as kind of like a ripe genre for picking.
Well, I think we both are addicted to it. And then also my children would watch it even for games they didn't play. So it's just such becoming the center of culture now, you know, in a way more than what movies used to be. Gaming is becoming more and more. So it just seemed like a ripe opportunity to explore and do something with it.
Absolutely. So what kind of a gamer would you say you are then? Like, what kind of history do you have with games? And do you actually enjoy sitting down and watching gamers do walkthroughs and that sort of stuff?
I definitely will watch a walkthrough if I get stuck on something. I mean, I try to do it myself first, but if I get stuck, I will definitely watch a walkthrough. And I'll watch reviews. I'm a little less likely to watch Fortnite or PUBG amazing players do it, but I've done it, you know. Yeah. It is interesting. But my children, man, they never tire of it.
Yeah, I know. And it gets bigger and bigger. I think Fortnite right now is the most streamed game. We're actually going to be talking about that a little bit later in the show as well. This piece and, you know, your other work definitely have a very dark comedy bend to it. I'll just give you a warning. Josh is our TD. Just so you know, Josh, there are moments where you might want to cut away, but it's really fantastic piece of comedy here. But you know, it also, and I think this is kind of, you know, throughout your works specifically, it touches on topics that can be a little bit uncomfortable. This one in particular touches on things like, you know, military, war-related PTSD, returning home from war, things like that are topics that can be difficult to discuss, yet you have a dark comedy edge to it. How do you, I don't know how you successfully straddle the line between those things. How do you approach that?
That's a great question. And you're right. I think we wanted to explore it, but we tried to be sensitive about it. And even I think we were protected a little bit by the Space Marine trope is such a big trope in video games that it just seemed a natural idea to explore this soldier coming home from war. And I think just the sort of stiff nature of the animation and everything. Yeah. Prevented it from being too offensive. And actually, I've heard from vets who think it's hilarious. So
yeah. Well, no doubt. It's interesting watching it because, you know, you started off, and actually this is the case with Too Many Cooks as well. You started off and you think what you were watching is one thing specifically because you tend to like top load your pieces for a while in one certain thing. It kind of lulls you into this false sense of security. You're like, I know what this is. Okay, I see where we're going. And then somewhere down the line, it just takes a U-turn and goes into a completely different direction. But, you know, that intermixed with the comedy and the, you know, somewhat, you know, more challenging kind of underlying themes. You've also got, you know, it kind of touches on the gaming world, you know, violence, depression even. Depression seems to be a topic that comes up time and time again. Are you, with pieces like this, is your attempt to make a broader, reflective kind of approach on some of these topics, like depression?
Yes, and addiction. And I think I have a little bit of all of that. Like, I have had times where I'll say I'm going to play a game for an hour, and then you cut to at 6 a.m.
Yes.
And it doesn't feel good. I mean, it's fun, but it doesn't feel good to not have control over your own, what you're supposed to do. So I definitely am not particularly looking down on gamers. This is for Nick Gibbons and I, it was an examination of ourselves, you know, because we feel like these people, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes that makes for the best the best content, right? Is when you create it close to yourself. Inevitably there are many other people that are right there along with you, and so it becomes very reflective in a broader sense. So I know obviously this was created for TV, but is doing really well online. That was the case for Too Many Cooks. I think that was initially created for Adult Swim, but then took on a life of its own online in a viral sense. I mean, does that even come into kind of the consideration when you're devising a show or a film like this, about its like virality, its ability to exist online? Because I mean, even the topic here is basically made for the internet. So what about that?
I'll give you kind of a nitty gritty answer to that. Is I think we try not to worry about virality, because that can just drive you crazy as a writer and freeze you up. But make you freeze up rather. But I think that one thing, and also we imagine that most people by far will watch this online versus on television. But there was something somebody pointed out. Most of the YouTube comments were amazing, but one person, I shouldn't even say this, but I will. One person commented that the window where the person, like the window we're looking at right now, that would be all the way down in the corner. We moved it up a little bit for overscan on television, you know, to be in title safe. Mm-hmm. So that was something we did for television, that if this had been purely online, we probably would have, that's a very nitty gritty answer, but we would have moved that square where Blair Trigger is talking all the way down. Those little details, we had to kind of compromise a little. Yeah.
Josh was lingering on those shots a little bit long. It's hilarious. Everybody has to watch it to get some more of the context there. So Too Many Cooks, like comparing them, because I keep bringing up Too Many Cooks because it was like one of my favorite things. I passed it around to everyone I knew.
Thank you so much.
I absolutely loved it and thought it was hilarious and gritty and weird. And if you haven't seen it, definitely see it. So it's impossible for me to watch these two and kind of compare them to a certain degree. Too Many Cooks, almost entirely non-narrative. I think you get a little bit of narration at the very, very end. Final Deployment 3 is almost entirely narrative. How do you compare like the difficulties of creating these two things? Because they're very different in approach, it sounds like.
I think in my mind, they're similar in the sense that they're trying to set up an expectation and then lull you, as you were saying earlier, and then surprise you. But you're right. The form of a video game walkthrough is wall-to-wall dialogue. So that was a challenge, while the form of Too Many Cooks was music. Yeah. But I actually would even say Too Many Cooks sort of has a narrative in a way.
I don't mean to imply that it doesn't have a narrative or it doesn't have a story, but more that there's like that it's dialogue less.
Correct.
You know what I mean? It really relies on a lot of action and a lot of visual, whereas Final Deployment is very dialogue driven. I
think one thing I will say is that probably is. We intended Final Deployment to be 11 minutes as well, but because it's the nature of that form is people are talking, it ended up just expanding to get everything we wanted to do. So it ended up being 22 minutes. So hopefully the audience can roll with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think you know, like we've said a couple of times, it gives you time to kind of fall into that comfort zone. Some of the best movies that I've seen. You know, spend the first hour as one movie and then suddenly in the middle take a U-turn and spend the last hour being something completely different. So it kind of falls in line with that. And then you do a lot in your pieces, at least these two, with kind of like breaking apart what you think is reality and going into a different direction, like we're talking about. I kind of have referred to it as like this nested reality approach. And I would imagine, like, I've never made a film or anything, but I would imagine that's very hard from a storytelling standpoint to keep straight. What were the challenges there, both from a writing standpoint and a technical standpoint? I have to imagine there's some challenges in kind of approaching that style of a story.
Yeah, the writing was probably the easiest part, but then in constructing it with the layers and getting, when people are talking at the same time, to layer that the right way so you can hear the correct phrase that you want people to hear, if possible. And then just all the different HUD design we had to do, which is sort of a very big field. And, you know, video games spend a lot of money getting that just right, you know, and just all the layers. We did it in Premiere. Nick Gibbons is also our editor, and just the number of layers he had to build. It got so complicated. It took like a half hour to load the project. So we would load it and then go do something.
Oh man, that's a nightmare if it ever crashes also, because I've definitely been there. and when you're talking about Premiere, probably with any software, but at least in my experience with Premiere, it's going to crash at least once. That's going to happen.
Oh yeah, you're going to get the beach ball. Yes, for sure.
I think the big question that I have for you as we kind of wrap this up is, I love your short style format. I love your short film format. I have to imagine, you know, everybody that you talk to that loves your work is asking you, all right, when are you going to give us a feature length? I could totally see like Sam Raimi. You would make Sam Raimi proud in like tackling a horror comedy or something along those lines. Do you have anything in the works that you're willing to talk about?
I do. I do. And it's so interesting you said that. It is a horror comedy.
Nice.
There's other stuff though. There's other genres, but that's right. Because a lot of people I thought I was going to do pure comedy, but horror comedy. And I'm writing it, and I had a problem where I would put it off because it's so daunting. So I have a friend, and I wrote him a check for $500. And if I don't turn in the script October 1st, he gets to keep that money. So
that's a good strategy. I like the way you think. On. Yeah, that's the way you do it. Put your own money where your mouth is and make it happen. This is awesome. Casper Kelly, director of Final Deployment. Is Final Deployment 3, right? Or no, it's 4.
4.
My apologies. Yeah. Okay, I had it written down one place wrong. Final Deployment 4. Look it up online. You can go to adultswim.com and find it there, or on YouTube. And if you haven't seen Too Many Cooks, definitely watch that. And obviously stay tuned, because it sounds like Casper has some really cool stuff in the works. Casper Kelly, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was an honor to be on here. Thank you.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon. We'll be following your work.